Welcome to our show. We'll get started. Welcome to our show, Get to Know Your Neighbor. I'm your host, Cameron Geesaman with Geesaman Homes. Each week we introduce a local Fishers resident or business owner to showcase who they are and kind of learn about what really makes them special. Connecting people has always been a passion of mine, and I'm loving actually having this opportunity to do it kind of on this platform through Facebook. So thank you for letting me kind of do something I love. Don't forget to click that like button below or post an emoji. A lot of times I can't see who's watching, so it's nice to kind of have comments or messages, and even just a wave emoji just lets us know that you're here. So I've been talking about tonight's guest with, I swear, so many people. She came highly recommended by a few of our past guests, and I could talk to her for hours. I kid you not, I talked to her for an hour. We're going to talk for an hour tonight, and I probably could talk to her for 5 more. So I can't wait to learn even more. Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing Janelle DeWolf, owner of Studio 116 Photography, founder of We Rise Social, a networking group for female entrepreneurs, and owner of the DeWolf Co. Janelle is a certified Enneagram coach that works with businesses and teams to increase self-awareness. Additionally, Janelle offers personal branding services to help businesses showcase their brand and better serve their audience. I honestly can't wait to kind of delve in and just pick her brain. Tonight, we are also doing a giveaway. Janelle was so kindly offered to give a lucky winner the ability to take the Enneagram test and then receive feedback. So please stay tuned so that you can have the chance to win that. Please welcome Janelle DeWolf. Let me add her instead of remove her, because that would be bad. There we go. I will figure it out.
Oh, you're doing great.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's just part of running a one-man show tonight. Just, oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for saying, first off, yes to my show. And then dealing with my craziness. Okay, we're going to go to comments here real quick. And I want to kind of just delve in, because I know a lot of people want to get, I know that I've talked to multiple people and they're like, get to the Enneagram as fast as you can. I'm like, but we have to talk to her too.
It's exciting stuff.
It's fun stuff. So we always ask a Fishers question first, because this is a Fishers focused show. So what has or is your fondest memory of Fishers?
Oh gosh. This is kind of fun. So I have 3 kiddos, and our son, his senior year in high school was on the state baseball championship team that ended up winning state. And that whole journey of all of the team, the community that arose behind the team, all of the community building exercises and events that were held, and how much support the boys got. That's probably one of my fondest memories, thinking about how much the community rallied behind the boys.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Such a great, I think, tribute to Fishers too. Like, they work so hard.
Right. It was really fun.
So, was it stressful kind of up to that moment, or were you just riding the ride?
It was a senior year. There were so many different things too that I would say riding the ride. Like, it was really a game at a time, and the boys had a great bond. The families had been together for a long time, and it really showcased what sort of community Fishers is, and a big reason why we live here and have raised our children here, have our business here. So
yeah. Well, we went to school here, and yet we're still here. So
yet again. Right.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about kind of who you are and how you came about wanting, when you started photography. So let's start there. Like, what made you want to do photography?
Yeah. Who I am. I am a wife, a mom of 3 that make me very proud, that have been very fun to raise and to watch them kind of come into their adult lives. And I would say that they're a big reason behind even the photography side of things, as I've always been passionate about photography. I had a corporate job, and about 10 years ago, after just making a shift for our family, I was still taking lots of pictures of them and just decided to take it to the next level and have fallen in love, honestly, not only with the photography side, but with the business building side that has led to some of the other stuff that we'll talk about tonight as well. But the opportunity to take a passion and develop it into a business, I truly feel like it was a gift, and I'm fortunate to have walked that path.
When you started doing the photography, did you ever think that you would in 10 years be where you are now?
Nope.
Like that it would lead to that?
No, it was a very spirit-led journey every step of the way, every turn of the business, every decision on which path to take. And I feel like that's still where I am today of, did 2020, did any of us think that it would look like this? And so
No.
So again, spirit-led.
Yes, I love that. And honestly, this was even spirit-led, when you just kind of have that moment of, I want to do something, but I'm not sure exactly what it is. And then it kind of turns into it. So yeah, I feel you on that one. Okay, so I mentioned kind of in the intro, We Rise Social. And so the next question is kind of what led you to then want to start We Rise Social, and what is the goal with the networking group? But I'm going to go back a little bit. Like, can you tell us a little bit about like what We Rise Social is other than just networking so that they can understand?
Yeah, I'll kind of take it back to like when I started the business, like truly, like I didn't know anything about launching. That was not my background, and it was a learn as you go. And that whole business building journey brought me alongside a lot of other amazing female business owners that helped take a lot of things to the next level. A lot of things we would figure out together. I'm a big collaborator. I love to do things in teamwork. And so I feel like that kind of 10-year journey just continued to put those sorts of things in front of me. My first photography studio was when I talk about Fishers, was on the grounds of Rita's backyard, which was kind of a staple. Rita was a big part of kind of helping me launch, and I look at that opportunity of her opening her space and allowing not only myself, but there were some other female business owners that were also on her grounds. And I look at those sorts of things, and that is how we rise as a community. And so it really evolved naturally from the aspect of just wanting to have a space where women, no matter the size of their business, no matter the stage of their business, had a space where they felt like they could come, be supported, ask questions, find resources, and that they didn't need to wait until they made a certain amount of money or achieved a certain level of something, and just a very natural, open community sort of opportunity.
I love
that's the heart behind We Rise.
Well, and it's, talking with some of the other guests, they, spoke very highly of We Rise, not that we spoke about it during the interview, but like afterwards they were like, you have to talk with Janelle. Like it's such a neat thing that she's doing with We Rise Social. And so hopefully once everything settles down, hopefully we'll be able to get back to that, which by the way, I did see your message. I commented on what I thought. So hopefully I can put my 2 cents in.
Yes. Everybody can keep an eye out if it's something that's interesting to know.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. I think to be able to surround ourselves with other strong women that have, the passion to help each other. I don't know if this is really Enneagram based, but I think one of the things that I always was told when I took other personality tests is that I was considered a connector. Do you know what test that is that does the
strengths?
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I always was told that. And it's funny because I do, like, I'll be talking to somebody and I'll hear somebody mention that they need something. And my brain automatically goes into, who do I know? And how can I connect? Like, it's just, but yet that's not everybody. And so there's a lot of people that just innately don't ever think that way.
Right.
So
I'd say that's been the most fun part of the group as a whole, is watching those connections take place, and then hearing, months later that this job happened because of it, or that they had taken that to the next level that was even outside of that whole group. And I too, and it is very Enneagram based. I'm very everything revolves around relationships for my Enneagram type, and so I understand where my drive for that comes from.
Well, and we're going to ask what yours is, and I'll tell what mine is, but here in a minute. So the next question kind of comes from, again, that kind of that next step, which I think will bring us to that Enneagram, which is, why did you want to start yet another company, which is now the DeWolf Co. And can you tell us about what you do with that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm obviously slightly multi-passionate, but where that came from was, a lot of my photography work has been working with a lot of high school seniors, and I love that work from the aspect of having the opportunity to document such a special time of life. Sincerely, the next time they're photographed like that will probably be their wedding. And it's such a milestone for not only the senior, but for the parent as well, the parents, because it's such a shift for the family dynamic. And so being able to photograph them, letting them see themselves as the beautiful person that everyone else sees them as, but they don't always have the opportunity to picture themselves that way. So that has been such a fun part. But so I do a lot of high school seniors with Studio 116, but alongside that, I was doing more and more branding, imaging for a lot of the female-owned businesses that I ended up coming alongside, and I fell in love with that as well. And so kind of ended up niching and specializing a little bit more in, okay, what is a personal brand? How can I support businesses, not only with the visual imagery, but other aspects of branding and creating their brand messaging? And so it kind of just transitioned and evolved into what really needed to separate itself. And then alongside of that, after doing a lot of my own Enneagram work and falling in love with it, I chose to become a certified coach. And so I paired that with a lot of the branding stuff, working with businesses, and the DeWolf Co. has kind of evolved into more of a strategic partnership where we will consult with businesses, not just branding, not just Enneagram coaching, but looking at like social media needs, marketing needs, and it just kind of ended up becoming its own sort of entity, and is truly in 2020 still evolving today as to what exactly it looks like, and what our business needs are changing all the time. So it's fun. I am a lifelong learner. I love to read. I love to learn new things, and so all of that just feeds what I know about myself, and therefore just makes the job that much more fun, because I get to fill people up and help them meet goals and help them become more self-aware and go to bed really happy.
Well, I love that, because that's part of the things that I love even about my job, right? Like, you get to interact with people, and that's fun if done the right way.
Right.
If done the right way, can be fun, and it can be stressful at times too. But it's like, that's what I love about the Enneagram, is really to kind of delve in, because I'm kind of like you, that I like to learn. I like to pick up that self-help book, so to speak, and try to develop to make myself a better real estate agent, or just a better person.
That's
know?
Right.
So, and clearly, everybody, she's going to be helping us out. Okay. So we'll delve in, because I know everybody kind of really wants to know about the Enneagram, but I think by talking about it and kind of bringing it back to how you help businesses by using that tool could be really helpful, hopefully, for people. So let's start off with, let's talk about, can you explain to the audience what the Enneagram is and how it's different from other personality types? Because in my opinion, it's very different because I've done them all. I
Yeah.
feel.
Yes, and I have too. And honestly, like I love all of them, and they all have their own aspect of helping us gain information about ourselves. And so they have their place, and there are different pieces of information we can gain. Where the Enneagram differentiates itself from other personality typing systems is that most personality typing systems look at evaluating and assessing your behaviors. The Enneagram looks at what motivates the behaviors that the rest of the world sees, which is why the Enneagram is also something that you can't type someone else.
Right. We
It's
try.
of a self-exploration of figuring out your type, because everyone else might be looking at the external behaviors that look like a certain type, but really what determines your type is the core motivation for your behavior. And so it's a 9-type system. There are 9 different types within the Enneagram. And it not only looks at our core motivation, but it gives us a lens through which we can see the world and see ourselves, but also see others. And that is such an amazing breakthrough when it comes to relationships, when it comes to communication, when it comes to recognizing your own God-given strengths that come from how we were built and created and made to be, but also kind of reveals that shadow side of some of our weaknesses that when we recognize that and maybe remove a little bit of the personal aspect of it, it helps you work on those weaknesses to be able to not let them just kind of operate on autopilot within your personality.
I agree with that. Well, 100%, because it's all correct. But I will say that one of the reasons why I absolutely love it is partially because it's those honest truths that you learn about yourself that kind of make you go,
Right.
oh, that's right. Oh, that's not so good.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I should probably work on that. You know what I mean? Because so many of the personality tests give you again, your personality, but they don't really delve in. And that's what I've really found beneficial, especially for Adam and I. So I'll tell you, we're going to kind of dive into the overview of the 9, because that's one of my questions. But I am a 7. So like you said, there's 9. So I'm a 7 and you're
I'm a 2.
Okay. So, and I just found out I have some family members that are 2. So I probably could ask you a million questions about 2 and you could tell me all about 7s. Adam is a 9. And so it's very interesting. Every time Adam and I are talking to somebody who's kind of new to it, we've had multiple friends go, I don't want to be put in a box.
Right.
And Adam's response is always, you're already in a box.
Yes. I've also heard it said that the Enneagram doesn't put you in a box. It shows you the box and tells you how to get out of the box.
Yes.
So that you do not feel trapped within your personality. You can recognize the things that, I use that word a lot, like autopilot. When we're just kind of asleep to our personality, that's when we're operating in the average space. And so that's the box. That's average. We're just letting our personality take over. But
right.
Creating that self-awareness through the Enneagram and many other tools as well. But the Enneagram is so insightful. It shows us, oh boy, I'm in the box. I need to work to get out of the box. And
it is. You said it way better than I can say it. And that's why you're the Certified Enneagram Coach. And I am not. Okay, so as we're going along, for all of our viewers, I kind of want to know if you know what your Enneagram is, what your number is, put it in the comments.
Yeah.
I always ask people to even just comment. I haven't seen any comments, so please comment. Tell us what Enneagram you are, if you love the Enneagram, and even if you don't know what the Enneagram is, say that you don't know, because it's just kind of, I love seeing what people are. It makes me, my husband and I, there are certain things about him that I'm like, oh, that's why. And I give a little bit more grace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge part of giving us an insight into, I remember when I learned my husband's type, I was like, I feel like I just stepped inside your brain.
Yes.
just understood so much more. And just providing the language between oh, okay.
Apparently it's all sorts of numbers.
Yeah, that's right. So let's talk about tests for a second.
Yeah.
Because I do think that that's an important point that I'd be remiss. When you say based on lots of tests, I don't love Enneagram tests. Just so the real journey to finding your Enneagram number is self-exploration. There are some great resources out there. The Road Back to You is one of the best books that is a very introductory primer. A lot of Enneagram resources can be very overwhelming, but The Road Back to You is written as a great way to truly explore the Enneagram types in an easy format. With that said, so many people are like, oh, Enneagram, and they'll do a Google search and they'll take a free online test.
Right.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that, because mistyping yourself can honestly do more disservice, and it'll be even harder to come away from understanding yourself. And so the resource that I like to use, because we are who we are and we like quick fixes and we want information quickly, and if you don't want to just sit down and read The Road Back to You, then I suggest taking the RETI, the RHETI, from the Enneagram Institute. And so that is the resource that I offer on my site. I offer a way you can purchase a test code. You take the test, it's sent to me, and then I'll give you like a kind of a quick overview of kind of a shortcut to begin your journey. So that, because what the test helps do is maybe filter the 2 to 3 to the top that you can get really curious around to begin learning more. But just because an Enneagram free somewhere on the internet says that you're a 2 doesn't mean that you're really a 2. You need to do the work of diving in and looking deeper at that.
Well, and most Enneagrams tell you really never to even do a quiz. It's hard, I will say, from the person who at first didn't really want to read a book and I just wanted to kind of find out. I do agree with you that, and I took the RHETI RETI, just to at least start that basis. And then when I was like, oh, that's really interesting, that's what then took me to the book, which I loved. So
yeah, it provides a good information within the report that is sent. So it's very helpful too.
Right. Okay, so for anybody who's looking at us going, what? You keep saying Enneagram and 1 and 7 and 2 and 9. Can you give just kind of a quick overview of the 9 types so that people can kind of understand? I know most of the types have like a word, which if you are on my Instagram or you saw my post, then you'll see kind of what like the type is and then kind of the one word name. But can you kind of give us a little details for those watching?
Sure. So what I'll do is I'll kind of use the number, the kind of the word that in different teachings kind of use different words, but I'll kind of tell you the way I like to refer to them. And then what their core motivation is. So that's usually, instead of describing them and their behaviors, really what motivates your behavior is really what determines your type. So the 1 is the reformer. Their core motivation is being good, right, correct, having integrity. Those are the things that motivate their behaviors. The 2 is the helper, sometimes also called the giver. And their core motivation is to be loved, wanted, and needed. The 3 is known as the achiever, and their core motivation is to be worthy and valuable, perform. The 4 is the individualist, and they're motivated by being unique, being set apart from what is seen as maybe the norm. Very individualistic, special, searching of their identity. The 5 is the investigator. They are motivated by being competent and self-sufficient. Love, research, knowledge, really can't get enough of that. The 6 is the loyalist, and they're motivated by feeling safe and secure, part of a community. The 7, our lovely Cameron, is known as the enthusiast. Oh, we have another 7. And the enthusiast is motivated by avoiding pain or boredom in a sense that, did I hit a nerve?
Oh no, I know it's so well.
They are said to be the life of the party. They live kind of in the upper half part of life. They are a blast to be around because they're living in the optimism. And so everyone has a 7 in their life. Everyone loves our 7s. The 8s are the challengers, and they have a motivation to be independent and assert themselves in situations. And the 9, both of our husbands are 9s, is the peacemaker. And their motivation is to be at peace both internally and externally. So they are calm, cool, collected.
Yes.
Keep us in check, right?
Yes.
Bring us.
A lot of people that knew me in high school would say I needed an Adam in my life. Because I was loud and obnoxious. Okay. Still am sometimes.
Yeah, so that's kind of a very rough, quick overview of the 9s.
And I like that. So, you as a 2, me as a 7, having a 9 in our lives. What I love is then researching, okay, if I know about a 9 and I know kind of what their motivation is or what their, path is, it's nice to then be able to meld and adjust, right? Like he calmed me down, but yet I've brought him out of his shell to a certain extent.
Right.
And what I've learned even on top of that is, even though we talked about this, all 7s, I don't know a single introverted 7. My goal is to find an introverted 7, but 9s can be introverted or extroverted. 2s can be as well. So it's interesting, even within, that's what I love, within the 7 or within the 2s or 9s, you can have so much that goes off of that, right? Like there's different, can you kind of talk about, not to confuse people too much, and you can tell me if I'm going too deep, but that there are, I'm going to call them wings. I'm a 7 wing 8 because I don't go to a 7 wing 9 where I'm, I want to know a 7 wing 9. I have to admit.
You would wing 9. You would wing. So the wings are,
Six.
Yes, the wings are the number on either side of you, and that's probably one of the biggest misnomers I hear communicated is people will say, I'm a 2 with a 7 wing because a test came up and said like the 2 was number 1 and the 7 was number 2 in their rankings, and so they like use that sort of lingo. And the wings are basically the number on either side of your number. So as a 2, I would be a 1 or a 3 wing.
Right.
I personally have a very, very big 3 wing. And what that means is that my behavior is motivated by the fact that I'm motivated by wanted, needed, loved. But I can borrow behaviors from the 3 that look like a 3, but I'm not motivated by feeling worthy, valuable, performing. So, I mean, that's a lot of the work is when you look at it is saying, okay, where do I sit here? And that was a lot of the work for me at the beginning was I a 2 or a 3? And so I also like to teach it in a way that your wings are like salt and pepper. And so some people may like both salt and pepper on their food. And so they borrow some of those behaviors from both sides. Some people just salt their food. They never pepper it. And so you might just lean more toward one than the other. But those are wings.
I definitely lean more towards the 8.
Yes, which is the challenger. And that's what you could never, Enneagram is a lifelong learning opportunity. some of the Enneagram teachers that I enjoy the most, this is 35 plus years that they've been researching the Enneagram. And so there are so many levels that you can take it. It's not just the memes that you see on Instagram that are kind of fun that, I mean, it's fun. You identify with them, but there are.
Which friend's character are you?
Yeah, exactly. That kind of stuff. But there are levels, there are subtypes, there are instincts, there are like center of intelligence, like with our head, heart, gut, like there's lots of levels, and all those things can also help you discern your type all the better when you dig that deep. But it's a lot of information, and so that's not usually your first dipping your toe in the water with the Enneagram.
It is a lot of information, but I think that that's when you really start to uncover and, like you said, are able to dig deep. Because just reading your number, so to speak, although, yes, I resonated very much with it, it's when I started looking at, like you said, okay, what are your wings? And then where do you go in strength or weakness? Because with the Enneagram, you can go one way or the other. And that's where I started to really go, okay. And even as I'm doing something, I'll start to do or react in a way and go, oh, wait.
Right. Yeah. And that's a self-awareness piece where you kind of recognize, where it'll be like, oh gosh, like I'm obviously moving to stress here, and that stress number is showing up. And so it's such a tool for staying self-aware and maybe just avoiding all those things that you continue to bump into in life over and over, and help you recognize why maybe that's happening.
Right. And I've done all the other tests, right? And so, of course, when I hear about it, I'm in my late 30s, right? Which I'm now in my 40s. Thanks, everybody. And you hear about it and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then to find out, like you just said, your coaches, the people that you follow most, have been doing it for 30 years. This isn't new.
Right. It's actually a very ancient system. It kind of came more prevalent in the US, like in the 60s-ish. And there are lots of stories along that line. But I mean, they can take the typing system back to ancient times of it being developed and evolved.
Which is crazy. Okay, so I asked you this when we talked the other day. For all of us parents out there who right now are trying to talk about their children, when you're told you're not supposed to, what age do you think is a decent age to either have that conversation or present it to a child? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's known to, you really don't want to introduce it in its true structure until like the late teens. It has a lot to do with just kind of like their own evolving and coming into themselves. And many parents can look back on their 2-3-year-old and see aspects that would be clear as maybe what direction they're going to go. But you really should not begin to, it's putting an additional label on our kids when they have enough to figure out with their identity anyway, that let them kind of come into it in a way that you can discuss aspects that might give you input, but please don't like have them sit and take a test or put a label on them until they're really more that late teen, early adult years.
And if you wouldn't have just told me that, I would be that parent. Not yet. I don't think, like, my oldest is 13. I don't think yet, but it's like there are certain things that I see or that I'm like, oh, and Adam just read, like, he had been one of the people that did a test, and one of his close friends is an Enneagram expert, so to speak. He's a therapist and he uses it within his practice. Awesome. And so he's learned a lot from him, but he just read, because I kept saying, you just need to read the book. Like, just read the book. So finally he read it and he was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And he was like, I think this child is this. And I'm like, we're not supposed to do that.
You guys can have that discussion, and you can stay curious as you watch them come into themselves. Just don't put them down at the table and ask them to take a test. And
so one of the things that I found very interesting, and I have to admit, I kind of have to, like, anytime somebody tells me what their number is, I always want to know what their relationship with their parents, because that's kind of described, right? Like what your relationship was, because part of how your personality is because of your relationship with your parents, right? Like I always wanted to be more, and I always wanted more from my parents, but I didn't really get it. And so I had to find it in my own way. Okay, wait, I have to show this comment because that's hilarious. My 13-year-old and then Kelly, as my 12-year-old, is listening and taking a breath. See, this is how this works. Sorry, guys. I even like I told you on the phone, one of my friends who's again an Enneagram coach, she's no longer with us, but her daughter wanted to know, and so she took it. So anyways.
Tell them that I think that probably says something about them right now, that they're curious around it. Okay, so take that as a cue, and then just encourage them to stay curious, to not let it identify and label. And
okay, so who is it, the one that's most curious? That's a 5, right?
A 5 is going to like research the heck out of it. Like they may not even tell you what all they're diving into before they're ready to feel very competent in sharing.
Okay. But what is the one that is really curious?
Well, what came to my mind there is more of like the take charge, I'm going to figure this out for myself, which would lean toward the behaviors of a challenger.
Okay, the 8. Yeah. Okay.
I know personalities, the go-getters.
Right. Which that's my friend's daughter. She's an 8. Oh, so then Ella says she's a 6.
Okay.
Hey. That's what's really interesting. So I really so the reason why I say that I wanted to look into what they are with their parents is because I'm thinking, okay, what kind of parent am I? And what number am I producing? How do I produce this one? Because I think this one's really good because mine's not so great. Like, do you feel like people do that when you talk to them?
Well, they're also, most of the teachings will also tell you that it is more nature than nurture. We are who we are and how we're made. Each type itself has a kind of a childhood message, a lost childhood message or a childhood wound. But also, I tell people that doesn't have to be a traumatic experience. That can just be like how information was received because of the lens at which you see things. So it doesn't happen to you or something that didn't happen that kind of set you on a different course. It's more of, because of who I am, I filtered information in this way. Therefore, I felt like I was missing this message.
Right.
It's
not my fault that I make them a 9 or a 2.
That is also very important, that there's not a bad number. So there's
not, no.
It is not like, oh, it's better to be a 7 than a 2, or I need to be an 8 it's the optimum is that you are the healthy version of your number. And by becoming self-aware about what it means to be just falling asleep to your personality and operating in average, then you can awaken to the things that are the healthy part of your personalities. And then you're maximizing all the strengths of your type, and you're aware of all the weaknesses to help hinder where that can cause us problems in relationships.
So I didn't ask this question in my slew of things, but so you have a business that comes to you and says, we'll just use us as an example because it's the only thing I can think of it in my head because this was off the spur. But we come to you, right? It's Adam and I, my dad, if we bring on other agents and we say, okay, we're wanting to develop our business. What does that look like? And how do you then take the Enneagram and use it within trying to help them? Like, how does that would have been a great question to send to you.
No, that's fine. I can do this one. So anytime I work with the business, it's always a more customized look at, okay, what are the needs of your business and what can we do to support you? But a lot of times what that first looks like is coming in and doing a series of workshops to help people type and understand their type, but also understand the other types of the team members that they're working with, and then give them tools of what that looks like to work amongst each other, to kind of understand the role that they're playing in the company, how they can develop themselves, and then also communicate better with each other. I think a great example is, for example, our ones. They're often called I like reformer, but often perfectionist is another word for the ones. They often see things very black or white. I'm sorry?
Spreadsheets is what I call them.
Just very orderly.
Love it.
Black, white, right, wrong. And they put a lot of pressure on themselves of how work comes out. And therefore, because of that, a lot of times people can share that in working with a one, they can feel like their work is criticized. And from the one's lens, they are doing that person a service by giving them that feedback to help them be good or better or perfect. Right. And so as soon as you give that sort of language to team members and you understand that's where it's coming from, that they're not criticizing you the way we're receiving it, but they're giving you feedback because they feel like they're helping you. And then we have a lot of grace when we understand that they also, however much feedback they're providing externally, they are in their heads 10 times criticizing themselves. And that's one of the big things a one describes as an inner critic that is always criticizing them. And so that gives us a place of grace to understand in working with someone that maybe our takeaways are, gosh, I'm always criticized. I never do it right. But now we've opened up a dialogue between those coworkers that becomes it can depersonalize some of that language, and it gives them a way to talk through it. And I would say that improved communication is one of the greatest tools of working with teams with the Enneagram.
Would you say that you mostly deal with just small companies, or do you feel like that some of the bigger companies are starting to look into it, or do you know?
I personally have not worked with any super large companies. A lot of my work has been with small businesses, but I know there are a lot of big companies that have embraced this. I've even heard stories of a lot of onboarding is done with Enneagram, and they'll even, I've seen that they'll even put their number on their office door. And so, it's Cameron Geesaman 7. So I know when I'm coming in, I'm going to get a lot of energy, and it's going to be happy, and I may not share how I'm not quite done with the project, but I'm going to give you the fluffy side. And so it helps us. It helps us in that communication of understanding each other. And so yes, it's embraced.
It's a huge tool. I think back before I did real estate, when I was in corporate America, so to speak. And I think about the times that I just wanted to understand someone, or you couldn't get to know them, or you know what I mean? If you just, and I know it sounds really bad, but could you just put your number on I don't know what company that is, but they get a big high five.
Exactly.
Because it's one of those where it would be nice to know, and it does set you, I feel I don't think it can really be bad per se, because it's as long as you're using it in the appropriate way, right?
Right. And that's a lot of the teaching too, is around how, what not to do with the Enneagram. Right. You do not, pigeonhole and stereotype, just because. And also you don't say, oh my gosh, you're being so too right now. So we need to be careful on how we use the language around the Enneagram. But
I can't say that Adam and I work together, and he sometimes looks at me and it was bring your 7 down a little. If we can just take that to, Or 6, that'd be great. I think that when you get to that point, Lo, at least with Adam and I, now that we know a little bit more, like I almost actually appreciate when he does that, because then it helps me even recognize,
Yeah.
I'm a bit over the top right now.
Yes. And that's okay if that's an agreement you guys have. Just as we
Always.
Especially when you're first learning, you want to type everybody and you want to figure out who's who, and like let them see a piece of paper of.
It's not just when you first start. It might be always.
Maybe.
Just because, again, like
Maybe
me, especially being a 7 and ADD, I'm all over the place. So it just helps. It just hones my skills.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Go, oh yes.
Right.
But I will tell you, a neighbor of ours recently kind of delved into it and found out what number he was, which was a 6. And I have to admit, I didn't know anything about 6s. So it made me go, oh, I need to learn and I want to know. And because there's some, like, who your friends are, right? Like, or at least the ones that we know that are Enneagrams, or that we know what they are. And so I didn't have anybody with that. So it was kind of nice to go, ooh, even 2, to a certain extent. When my brother and sister-in-law, I was like, okay, we need to read this, because I know the 2 is the helper. But what else is about it? And it just was really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can see it being really good in the workforce. And I love that you are going into businesses and helping with that and being able to use those tools, because again, I think it can make the work environment better.
Well, and one of the most costly things for companies is losing employees and employee turnover. And so if we can help provide an environment that gives them the security and the tools to operate with each other, that makes them want to stay, then that's where it hits the bottom line, and our companies can reap all those benefits.
I didn't even think of that.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Save money. Use Janelle. It's the tagline. I just made it.
Save money.
Right? Save money. Okay, so what would you say is your favorite part about talking with people about the Enneagram?
Oh, again, through the lens that as a 2, like a lot of my life is about relationships. And so I think one of my favorite things is providing that tool, that resource to help them deepen and improve relationships in their life. And not even just with others, but with yourself. Like just having that understanding of you are who you are, and you have beautiful gifts that you were given, and to operate within those and to go use those in the world. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. So
it's limitless, in my opinion.
Limitless. Yes.
I like that. Save money. Use Janelle. It's limitless.
It's limitless.
I'm just going to keep adding it on, Janelle. Okay, so for all of those out there, what advice would you give to someone who has never heard of the Enneagram and is wanting to delve in?
Yes. I would encourage you to either pick up The Road Back to You, which it's written by Ian Morgan Cron and Suzanne Stabile, who are both big Enneagram teachers in the world. There are a lot of other amazing resources out there, but they're a little heavy. And so I appreciate the way The Road Back to You was written, because it's much more easily digestible. I love to learn through podcasts. And so both of those, both Ian Morgan Cron and Suzanne Stabile, have podcasts. One is the Enneagram Journey, and one is Typology. There are many, many, many other great resources out there of podcasts. I love listening to podcasts where they interview people of certain types. Again, like it doesn't even have to be your own type. Like when you were saying, like you were curious about the 6, like how do we learn about people? Well, we listen to them and we hear like how they process information, how they see things. And so I think those are 2 great early ways to gain information. I share stuff on my Instagram site occasionally, like of little things about getting to know your type or getting to know about the Enneagram, I have resources on my website. And just pick somebody's brain that has been kind of along the journey. And it's also said that you usually know your type when you are reading or listening to it being described and you cringe a little. That's usually because we do have those shadow side weaknesses. And so when you read about your type, it's usually the reading about the negatives that are a bit harder to digest, that you kind of go, oh gosh.
Oh, shoot.
Right. Oh,
that hurts a little. Yeah, I know it is. And I do like that book, and you can get it on Kindle or you can even get an audio book, which I think is good. I highlighted stuff and did all sorts of stuff just because to be able to go back to it. But I think that's a great, that's what I usually recommend to people. And even the Enneagram Institute, if you go to their website, they have a
resources.
Yeah, ton of stuff. Okay, so we're going to get to the question. So for anybody that's still watching, because she kind of just did mention ways to learn about the Enneagram. And so I'm going to go to the banners because I'm doing this myself. Normally the husband's here and
he just pops it up magically.
I know, he pops it up. It makes it real quick, but I have to like look off of the screen. So this is how it's going to work. So Janelle has been so kind to offer to actually be able to gift to someone the RHETI Ready. Is that how you say it? Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's how, because it's silent, that H.
Yeah.
So you take the quiz, which how long would you say the quiz usually takes?
I would probably about 45 minutes.
Okay.
It's pretty in depth. It's not your 5-question free Enneagram test.
No, I don't. My sister-in-law took that one, although I think it was fairly close. It was true, false. And I was like, she finished. And I was like,
are you sure?
That was way too fast. I think it might have actually gotten her right, but that's not normally the case. So I recommend that test as well. And you can get it through an app on your phone, even to a certain extent. But so Janelle has offered that, plus also to give you the feedback results, what does that look like typically?
So basically what I do, and I mean, anyone can go out and go to the Enneagram Institute and take the test. If you're going to take a test, please just go pay. It's $12 to take the test on their site. And so what I do is I then take the results that come from that test and give you some points and some things to consider as you get curious around the numbers that kind of filter to the top, and kind of ask you some questions to take you the next level, to really make sure that, it may not just be the score that ranked the highest.
Right. Because that makes a big difference.
Yes.
So she has agreed to do that for us. So thank you. How this works, which if you've watched any of our previous shows, it's real simple. The first person to answer the question correctly and put it in the comments and be the first and right, that makes sense, in the comments, then they can win. If nobody responds through our thing live, then if you're watching it back later and you're still the first person that responds, then I'll connect you with Janelle and we'll get it figured out. So the question is, where was Janelle's first photography studio? And I'm going to leave that up for a second while we go back to the question. So I'll let that kind of scroll for a little bit, so that anybody that kind of pops on that was watching, because I know people kind of jump on and off. So while we do that, tell us kind of where we can find Janelle, or if we're wanting to connect with Janelle with Rewrite Social, or if we have a senior that wants photographs, which by the way, you are now on my list. That'll be in 6 years. So just don't.
6 years. Wow.
5?
My youngest is now a junior. So I'm like right there.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Oh. So where can we find Janelle?
I hang out a lot on Instagram. So my handle is Janelle.DeWolf. And all of the senior photography work is over on Studio 116 Indy, INDY. you can check out all my beautiful clients there. And my website is the DeWolf Co. So you can find lots of Enneagram and various stuff there. I hang out. I'm at football games on Friday nights, and she's a dear friend, so it might be a little biased.
That's okay. We'll take biased, unbiased.
Yeah. But yeah, or just like around the well. Yeah, I'd love to be out. Yeah.
Okay, so that leads me to my last question. So I'm jumping to that because I contacted the well, and I think maybe the manager emailed me back, but I've wanted to get them on.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because
or Schoolhouse 7. Another.
I'm interviewing him in a few weeks.
Awesome.
I think. Yeah, we were going to interview him sooner, but then something popped up and he couldn't do it. And so we had to move it, which was fine. So, okay. So we know where I'm going to take this scrolling thing off. We'll leave if anybody wants to answer that question on if you already know the Enneagram, then I say don't do that. But if you are really curious about that and know, you can go back and watch the video and determine where Janelle's first studio was. But what are always our last question? That is not what I wanted to post or pop up there. Our last question, see, multitasking. There we go. Who do you think we should interview next?
This was hard because I could give you a list. There are a lot of amazing lists in our community. But I would like to recommend that you reach out to Tom and Jeannie Britt, who are the owners of Town Post Network, and they publish. They have 18 magazines within their franchises, but they do our Fisher's magazine, our Geist magazine, and they are huge promoters of both our community, small businesses, and bringing positive news.
He does videos.
Yes, he does a lot of things.
Tom and Jeannie
Britt, Britt.
Okay. Anybody else? I'm going to ask you for more than just one.
Okay. Yes, I haven't asked her permission, so, but I would highly recommend, and it would be a similar type of conversation, coming from a really cool additional angle, but her name's Tracy Cheatham.
Okay.
She works within StrengthsFinder and does a lot of similar work, and has a really cool background and story.
I like that.
Yeah.
Does she do a lot with like the story brand?
No.
Okay.
That's how I work through a lot of story brand stuff with marketing and brand scripts.
Ryan Ulwert is who first told me about story branding and was like, you have to do it. I have to admit, maybe I need to get with you because trying to do a story for a real estate agent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm really struggling because I keep thinking about it and it's like, build a brand. Okay. Achieving your dream? Because that's what every agent says. So it's just not as fun. So I will connect with you to get Tracy's and Tom's contact because that would be great to be able to connect with them. I've seen, because I think Tom even interviewed another local agent that I absolutely love. And when I saw it, I was like, ooh, I would like to have him, but I don't know him. So it's.
Yeah. And he has his own podcast show as well. So
yeah,
connects. They are kind of the definition of Fishers. They're just very ingrained and supportive of the community and have been very involved.
Not last 2 weekends ago or 2 weeks ago, was it? I did Larry of Larry and Fishers because and he is. I have to admit, I probably was the most excited person about talking with him because he did have so much information about Fishers. And I love that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the older stuff. And I think probably some people go, they don't get as excited.
Tell me about the new restaurant.
I know, right? Okay, well, we're kind of nearing the end. We're probably past the end if my husband was here.
I would say thank you for doing this, for sharing about the people in our community. It is such a great community. I'm proud to be a resident of Fishers and have raised our family here. We chose it intentionally, and I look forward to the way it will continue to grow as a community. And I think things like this and being able to find out about, what is local. And I think 2020 has taught us a lot about that too, is ways can we work within our community and support our community. And the more we learn about the type of businesses that are here, the more aware people can be to how to support.
Well, and that was one of the struggle, right? Like when people are like, support local, you're like, okay. I have you can think of places, but when I started talking to people, you have a handful, right? It's not like you have a ton. And yet I think that there's things at our disposal that we just don't know about. Like, I didn't know that you help small businesses. You know what I mean? Like now, if somebody says to me, hey, I'm trying to grow my business, or I'm trying to figure out, or I'm trying to, develop it or grow it to be something better than what it is. Perfect. Call Janelle.
Right.
And I think that that's what I want to bring, is I want to bring that there are more people out there that we can connect with that are just right here. Sometimes you hear about, one of my friends does marketing, but she does tons of marketing for companies in California. And I'm like, you could do marketing for people right here in Fishers. You know what I mean? So that's one of those where it's like just developing those connections. So we do not have anybody that has answered that question yet. So people are probably going to have to go back and listen.
See who the winner is.
And talk real deep about it. So I kind of liked that question.
You have to listen closely.
Right.
Watch.
Or you just have to know Janelle and start digging.
Text me. I'll tell you. Hit me a DM on Instagram. I'll just give you that.
Right. Okay. I want to at least let everybody know who next week is, and I have to look at my calendar because, well, I do. It's Jessica Landé.
Oh, yes. Landé. Yes.
Who owns Peppermint, which I'm really excited because I told Heather, my neighbor, who is friends with her and recommended, was like, we're going there before I do the interview because I want to get something cute.
Oh, heck yeah, you have to wear it. And honestly, I was in this week. I love them. They have great stuff. They're always getting new stuff, but their fall stuff right now is, you won't have finding something to wear.
I'm very excited. Anything that's new and fun. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. I might have to have you on for a second installment at some point.
Sounds good. We'll go too.
I know. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, you can find Janelle on Instagram and on her website, the DeWolf Co. Of course, you can message her in our comments. And then if you have any questions for us, just let us know. But thank you for watching another episode of Get to Know Your Neighbor. And you guys all have a great night.